Welcome to the Business Grind, where we give you an inside perspective on what it takes to start, build, and run a successful business. Here are your hosts, Danny Shaw and Sean Michael Wellington.
All right. Hello to everyone in podcast land today. Thanks for joining us. Sean, how you feeling?
Feeling good, and can't believe it's been 50 episodes already. It kind of, I don't want to say it flew by. It's been a minute, but 50 seems like a lot.
Yeah. We put in some work, and for sure, and we are now at our 50th. So thank you to our listeners who are rocking with us today to our very special 50th episode of the Business Grind. And like Sean said, I can't believe we've gotten here. It wasn't fast, but it's been steady, and now we just like, oh, we're here, right? But it's been a cool journey, right? Definitely been a cool journey so far. So for today's episode, we don't necessarily have a book review, interview, or things of that nature today. Today it's just us, reflecting on some of the key takeaways, our favorite moments, and reflecting on our guests and a lot of the feedback that we've gotten since we started this show.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of a look back and some things that stood out across those 50 episodes.
Yeah, and again, I definitely want to thank the listeners and the feedback that we've gotten from the listeners over the time of us doing this show. Is definitely has helped and played a huge part and influence on how we craft the episodes and the type of topics that we cover and the feedback that we provide to our audience members who hit us up for questions and stuff behind the scenes as well. So yeah, man. So let's go. Let's just start it off. Any episodes or any themes or things that stand out to you over the years of us doing this show so far?
I think one thing that stands out is we got to shout out Mark, because he's our only repeat guest, right? He's our only one we had on more than once. So definitely Mark stands out. We got to shout out his episode.
Yeah, I think the challenge is you got to kind of you have to find why they're doing events in the first place. We do some events where it's all about how many people came through the door. And then we do other events where they may have, 20 people, but they're all influencers. And it's more about the quality of the people than the quantity of the people. And a lot of times the client's the one bringing the people. And then we have to make sure they're getting everything out of it.
It's funny you brought up Mark, because as I was thinking about this episode, I do feel like one of the key takeaways or things that I remember doing this show has been the episodes with Mark, but not just because Mark has been on the show twice, but because he was one of the guests who really had to transition and pivot his business during the pandemic, right? And for him and for what his business is based on, experiential marketing and set design and stuff like that, how do you transition or create a new path when pretty much your main focus and way of earning money for your business has been pretty much swiped away from you, right?
Every person had to be tested every single day. And it was a tremendous amount of people who weren't vaccinated. So we had to send people away, and then guests had to come. We actually had temperature checks at the time. Guests, we didn't have to worry about as much, but we really, really limited who was there. And it was people were chosen, invite only. So it wasn't the big crowds.
Right, and we spoke to him like right in the middle of it, right? Mm-hmm. He was just pivoting. He was still working through the kinks and everything. So he was really in the middle of establishing what his business is now, which if you go on to LinkedIn or just search his website, you see like the kind of products he's making. It's like incredible. Right. So yeah, I agree with you. It was cool to be with him back then, and then the follow-up, and then just to even see him now is cool.
Absolutely. So yeah, I know a lot of times in business we talk about, businesses pivoting or changing directions, and sometimes we look at it with skepticism, like, oh, well, I don't know if they should just kind of stay in their lane and do what they're doing. And in the case of Mark, he couldn't stay in his lane and do what he was doing, right? Because there was no venues to do it at. So to see how he just kind of transitioned and pivoted and is doing, pretty well in 2024, that was good. And also kind of just, I don't want to say make me get out my own comfort zone, but also made me just say, okay, here's a scenario where it really worked out for the better, right? Like as far as the transition. Obviously, we don't know what the path would have been if we didn't have to deal with a pandemic, but definitely was able to see a great example of someone who didn't necessarily go under because of it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. He was able to flourish a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. All right. So yeah, shout out to Mark. What else you got for us, Sean? Any key insights or takeaways that you recall from our 49 episodes so far?
Key insights or takeaways. We know you don't like debt. That's you don't like it taking on unnecessary debt.
I do not, but I will say over the course of doing the show, my take on it has changed somewhat, right? Like I'm still not a person that likes to take on debt or want to like to go that path. And before this show, I definitely understood why you took on debt, especially for a business. Definitely understood that. But I would say over time, I'm not going to say I did a 180 and I've changed my view, but I've gotten a little bit more, I guess, softer on my position. Like, hey, I definitely understand that is needed at times. You need to leverage things, and you'll be even surprised to know I am now considering ways on how to leverage that in a good way, in a positive way. Not be super risky, not anything that's going to keep me up late at night, but I am looking at ways on how to leverage some debt in order to help some of these business goals and aspirations at the moment.
You set that up to be a lot. The way you set it up, I thought you were gonna be like, I've even taken on a loan, or but you're like, I'm thinking about it.
No, I mean, I haven't even. No, yeah,
cool,
I'm not
like
taking.
that,
I'm not taking. Yeah, we're not going that far. But I've definitely been making my notes and considering a few options and ways to go about it, and seeing like, hey, if I did it, what would be the route? What would I be using it for, and things like that, And because I think for me, because I just really like to keep things lean and low, and just not a lot of overhead, that has maybe been a little bit of a challenge. But I am also, I'll say I'm fortunate to even be in a position where when the time comes, it will be available to me,
Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So
now, can I ask, did the MCU episode, was that part of what softened you? Be honest.
Yeah, actually, a little bit. It definitely had a little bit of an input. I mean, it wasn't before the MCU. I was definitely considering things and considering ways on, like, what the possibilities could be if I decided to leverage some debt. But then reading the MCU book, it definitely was like, all right, that probably to me. I'm sure there was other examples prior to that, but to me, that was probably the best example I saw up until that point of, oh, okay, I'm okay with this move of leveraging debt to grow the business. But up until then, I couldn't really see it in other scenarios that I was exposed to. So yeah, yeah.
Okay, so for our audience who didn't watch that episode or listen to that episode, maybe give us a little context to how the Marvel Studios company used that.
So, and keep me honest on my facts. So essentially, they had the 3-movie deal with the investment firm. I forgot the firm's name offhand, but essentially they had a 3-movie deal. So they had 3 attempts to pay back their loan to the investment bankers that they took the money from to finance their first 3 movies, and essentially they made that money back X amount of times over within the first movie. So they were able to pay back the loan plus some, and then start playing with house money that allowed them to just run the bank and start the empire that is Marvel Studios at the Marvel Studios that we see today. Now, and at that time, the risk was pretty high because Marvel Studios was not a proven company or entity at the moment, but they took a bet on themselves, and the fact that they had 3 attempts to try to get it right. So we can always say in hindsight, oh, this was perfect, or the bank, might have the bank probably missed out on a major opportunity. But considering the circumstances at the time and what was at stake and what was known, it seemed to be a very smart move on Marvel's side.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a great explanation, and
Yeah.
it's also a good example because you can really like see it in real life. You remember how they grew. So
Right, exactly. So yeah, so that's me. Don't listen. Don't You're not gonna find me tomorrow being $1 billion in debt like Robert Kiyosaki and just saying it's all to the good. I'm not doing that, but a little leverage to help the business doesn't really hurt anyone if you're doing the numbers and everything is solid. So yeah.
all right, so you referenced Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad, which we did a revisit of that. So that was another recent episode, right?
I mean, my thoughts still ain't really changed on that. I mean, for some people, that is the gospel. That is definitely the gospel of how to do business. People gonna quote that. And again, I didn't necessarily, even after we revisited, it's not like I didn't like the book. I think I would say I probably don't like the mentality that a lot of people have taken from reading that book, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you explained it as anti-education.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's a lot of anti-education, a lot of anti-government, a lot of anti things that contributed to their success, and then once they are successful, it's like, hey, nah, we got to get rid of this. And I'm not here to say that there can't be improvements to the system that we live in the world that we do live in, but to me, it's always kind of interesting because it seems to knock the working man or woman, right? And I'm not really here for that. I kind of feel like if you want to do business, and if you don't want to create a business and you want to work, then you do that too. I'm not necessarily in the vein of knocking anybody approach one way or another. I mean, if you have a business, you're gonna have to have workers or employees of some capacity at some point. So I never really understood the notion of knocking people who are just want to work, right? And I think that's what a lot of people, at least individuals who I've crossed paths with, have kind of taken that type of stance with that book after reading that book and so forth.
Yeah, kind of people using their own insecurities and kind of using that book as almost like as a weaponized way. So I get exactly what you mean.
Exactly. So that's for me. That's just my take. So yeah, man.
Okay, well, let's keep going down the theme of books. What were some of the standout book reviews that you remember?
I'll say I like all of the books, and I know that's like, oh, here we go. Actually, but let me focus on the book that I probably was the least knowledgeable in, which is Built to Sell.
Wow, you stole my answer. That's crazy. How you out of all the books, you really that's crazy.
It was Built to Sell. So for our audience, the episode we did on Built to Sell was essentially it's a book about how to sell your business when the opportunity arrives and what to be mindful of, how investors look at your business and how they set up these deals on how to buy it and what to be mindful of. To me, it was very eye-opening. I think for myself, I really hadn't thought about selling anything in life. Business-wise, like, oh, you're gonna set up a business and sell it. We hear about it all the time in the news. We see it in the headlines. But to know the ins and out behind it, this was a very good book and a very eye-opener for me, at least. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I can't agree more. Like, that book was definitely my favorite. That was my number one out of every book read. Only because the way they told the story was great, right? They had a real person going through the steps, going through the mentality of like, he's the business, right? He's the stopgap for everything. And he shifted and changed his whole business model to something that runs without him so that if he wanted to sell it, he can. He doesn't have to, but it's built in a way where you're not the one in the trenches necessarily doing all the work and making it go. So like, yeah, I really love that book.
Yeah,
So
it is a great book. It's a great book. And here's a fun fact. A friend who was working for a company or agency, she had pinged me. It was I don't want to say it was right around the time that we did this episode, but it was close enough that this book was still top of my mind. And she was asking me for advice because allegedly the company said that they were going to sell themselves to someone, and that they were making the employees like partners. It sounded kind of convoluted to me. I didn't know all the details, and I was like, what's happening? Like, oh, well, they're going to sell and we're all going to get equity and stuff like that. To me, it sounded a bit crazy, and especially after reading the Built to Sell book. I sent her this episode, and after I sent her that episode, she's like, I'm good. I'm like, this is not happening for us. Like, there was nothing. I'm not going to say the company was lying, but it probably was more of a case where the company wanted to do it, but they weren't in a position yet or prepared to sell at the moment. But they were trying to get there, but they were nowhere near close to selling as they had alluded to. And her listening to that episode kind of made her realize that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting real world application.
Yeah. She gave us a shout out and all that. She's like, I am good. But yeah, so it's helping folks out here, you know?
I mean, I think it's real helpful. I think it does help you think about your business from a top level view in a way. You're just like, okay, if I'm somebody who's coming and taking this over, what would be the problems? That's kind of how it made me think about my stuff, at least. So.
Okay, absolutely. Anything else that made you think about? You know, I mean, I feel like all these episodes make you think about how you're approaching your own business. And
yeah, I mean, this is not exactly an answer to your question, but the franchising episode.
Oh, you just took my. Oh, man.
See, so even.
That was me. I was just about to say that. Go ahead with the franchising.
No, it gave me some insight that I didn't have before into it, and then since that, I've explored a couple different franchises since then. I haven't, locked in on anything or greenlighted anything, but I've definitely done the research and deep dived into a lot of them. So yeah, I think that was kind of like. That episode kind of kickstarted that, I think, that exploration for me. So yeah.
Oh man, you know what that episode did for me? It made me say I think I'm good on trying to get a franchise.
It had the opposite effect for you, yeah.
I said I don't think this. I've had thoughts about getting a franchise for years. I think at one point I even looked at I was trying to get a Golden Crust actually. A Golden Crust. I was doing deep research at one point, and I remember at the time whatever information I got about Golden Crust, there was a whole packet I had downloaded, and I was combing through all the documentation, and then they had even if you didn't get a restaurant, they had like a kiosk where you can franchise and have a kiosk, essentially like a food cart version of Golden Crust.
Sure, somewhere. Yeah, they had one in Grand Central.
Yeah. So I was definitely looking into all of that, and I was looking into restaurant businesses as a whole. So once I was looking into restaurant businesses, I was looking at franchising, and I think once we got to the episode where we really did our deep dive, I said I think this is going on the back burner for a while, maybe forever. I think I'm good on that. And also, I think for me, just the margins. I'm very big on my peace of mind nowadays. So just the margins and the stress behind it. I was like, oh no, this doesn't. It was very insightful. I'll say that much. Very insightful, very good. But I was just like, I think I'm all the way good on that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Man.
All right. So that's 2 stolen answers. All right. So I don't want to jump around too much, but I was gonna ask you your favorite movie review, but I'm gonna say my answer first so you don't steal it.
All right.
Which is definitely The Founder.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. Definitely enjoyed The Founder. That was a good business movie. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. If you anyone out there, even if you're not aspiring to start your own business or anything, I just think it's a good movie. Is I don't know. It's just a good story. I think it's just a good story. And for those who have not seen it, it is the story on Ray Kroc, the founder, the quote unquote founder of McDonald's, and how McDonald's came to prominence, and the story of how he started the franchise business, and also how he stole the business from the brothers who started the McDonald's in the first place, and the systems and the fast food restaurant systems and so forth. Yeah, I just thought that was a good story and a good movie.
Yep, I agree. Another one that, if you had stole that answer from me, if I didn't go first,
hold on. Before you get to your second answer, your second answer that I might steal, I will say there with watching The Founder, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. There was a part of me that was like, oh man, see, this is the bad side of things, because what are you willing to do for success, right? And especially at what point in your life, because as I'm watching that story, and there was a lot of elements where you could definitely feel like he felt like his window was closing, right? And I think that's, at least when I see a lot of business stories or people who are trying to pursue their dreams, there's always that sense of like a window was closing in, right? And maybe it doesn't happen the way they thought it was going to happen in their head. And if that is the case, what do you do, or what are you willing to do in order to make it happen? And in this case, I want to be very clear. This guy was no saint, right? This guy was no saint.
Not at all.
It was some shady stuff happening going on. But again, I don't know. It definitely let me. I sat with that for a while. Like, this is kind of wild. Like, but as they say with a lot of businesses, behind every fortune, there is a crime somewhere. So, and in this case, the the crime is some of the underhanded things that was done to the brothers in order to get the McDonald's franchise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree with that.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so I didn't mean to get all heavy on that topic, but yeah. All right, so what was your other movie?
The other movie I liked a lot. Well, I mean, I liked a lot of the, I liked almost all of the ones we watched, for real. But another one that like I just remember and kind of sticks with me a lot is Ford versus Ferrari. I like that one too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Just because it had everything. It had the business aspect of it, how it's, this competition between Enzo Ferrari and Henry Ford II or whatever, and him trying to prove himself. I don't know. It was a cool, tight little story.
No, it was a cool movie. It was a cool movie. I'm not knocking it. As I'm thinking about it, though, maybe I need to revisit. I definitely enjoyed it. I don't think I got heavy business vibes, even though it was a business movie.
They faded out of the business stuff. The business was like the first act with John Barenthal and him, and like he kind of faded out of the business. Once they set up what they were going to do and they hired everyone, then it stopped being about business. Basically.
Right. But no, I definitely enjoyed it. I got one more movie review.
All right.
Startup.com.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that one. I thought you were going to say The Banker. Startup.com.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
That was to me, that was interesting because that was a .com movie. It was dated. So it was an old movie. And it was interesting because it was a .com movie during the first .com era. And now I just feel like we're repeating the same thing again, right? So just seeing that movie, which was X amount of years ago, while we're in the midst of a new .com and tech bubble era, especially now with AI, to me, I'm just like, this was a good movie back then, but I feel like it could be used as a cautionary tale for right now as well. So yeah.
Sure, yeah, the Web3 and AI stuff
all of that.
So I know we had a couple of topic episodes, right? We had business cycles and we had like culture versus strategy. So what were some of the ones that stood out to you, you think?
I felt like I definitely liked the Cost to Be the Boss episode. I like that.
Yeah.
I think so. For those who may have not caught that episode, that was essentially the cost, not just financially, but mentally, and the toll that it takes in order to start your own business and get into business. And we definitely cover the financial aspects, just top level, how much money you should expect to invest in the business that you're trying to start. And mind you, these estimates aren't a one size fits all. We are aware that industry, different industries, different costs are associated with it, and things like that. But from a baseline perspective, filing your paperwork, maybe a logo, getting a website, things like that, branding, costs that's associated, as well as the financial, the mental impact, psychological impact, impact that it may take on you and your family and your loved ones. I really like that because I think, especially when we started this show, I feel like we were in the midst of the be your own boss frenzy, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, well, being your own boss or thinking you are your own boss is not as easy and simple as just saying I quit and I'm setting up shop tomorrow. There's a lot of things that go into it, which is why we started the show. It was like, yo, let's kind of let people know it's not just putting CEO in front of your name and then tweeting about it. There's a lot of things that go into it. So to me that was a good topic. The topic about taking losses, I really like
that was a good one too.
That was a good one, yeah, because there are losses, and I think for a lot of, especially in today's headline driven cycle that we're in, obviously it's more glamorous, more appealing to focus on the wins that people get, and whenever there's a win, celebrate that. But for all the wins, for every win, there's at least 10 losses a lot of times, right? And at least I was more than happy with sharing my losses. I had no problem with sharing mine because, I learned a lot. I learned so much from all my business losses over the years. So, yeah.
One that we did a lot of business breakdowns, right?
Mm-hmm.
We did Lego, we did
studies.
FUBU, Rim BlackBerry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know for me the BlackBerry one was fun. It was kind of like a trip down memory lane. But which ones did you like?
With the case study, I did like MailChimp. I still like MailChimp as a company. Just the way they started, the way how they did what they did, basically they didn't take on a lot of debt. I think that's
You like that about
I
it
like
too.
that.
Yeah.
I like that they became they was able to compete in the tech arena with the tech big boys and all that other good stuff and be one of those big names that a lot of people and businesses rely on, especially in the tech and the email marketing space. And they offer more things nowadays without leveraging so much of themselves early on, and the fact that they were based in Atlanta, they wasn't even in Silicon Valley. They were on the other side of the coast just doing what they do. And to me, so I really like that. And I like the case study on Legos. I thought that was a good episode as well, because the Lego story is just a nice up and down, twists and turns, how they started to where they ended up on the brink of being obsolete to then figuring their way back into the game. And now, I don't think we're at a place now in society where we can think about a world without Legos now,
Yeah, they've definitely established themselves as part of society, right?
Right. So yeah, that was a good one too as well. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then this wasn't really a case study. It was more we were reviewing the docuseries, but And One was really a good one too.
I did like And One. I'm all I think with And One and with FUBU, when you talk about these companies that's focus more on, I don't want to say focus more, but they leverage a lot of the culture into their business strategy, right? To me, it's always very weird, how you approach it, and I won't even say weird. There's a fine line between doing it right and just being, exploiting it, right? And in both cases, when it was good, right? And then when it burns, it burns. But I do think with FUBU and One, not just those two, like the Carl Kanais, all those brands that came out back in the day. To me, I feel like those were like the first wave, the first wave of doing it, where there was a brand that was closely clothing fashion wise that was really associated with the culture. Now we have other brands that where it's more known and more acceptable to associate and align your brand as being a part of the culture. And I feel like there's now more of a blueprint on how not to succumb to the same pitfalls like an AM1 and a FUBU and all these other brands from back in the day, you know?
Yeah, they definitely learned from previous like mistakes, and
Right.
people are able to flourish throughout that. Yeah,
Like no lie, yesterday, I was at a discount store. I saw Rockaware shorts at a discount store, right? I was like, is that Rockaware? I would have never thought that, right? When Rockaware was Rockaware, right? And there's no knock. It's just every brand gets their time. Every company gets their time to shine. And when it comes to the clothing, especially clothing that's associated with the culture, you start to see that it's a very short life cycle from the racks to the heights of having its own showroom at a Macy's to being in a discount bin at your local store, you know. So, and the designs
we might have to do a Rockaware episode in the future.
Yeah, and the designs wasn't even bad. I was just like, oh, it's Rockaware shorts in the bin right here, you know. So yeah. That's all I got. But you're right. Those were some good episodes for sure. So I know we gave Mark love early on for pivoting, but we also had a nice range of guests on our shows throughout the years.
Definitely.
Yeah. So anyone who honestly, I got something from every interview that we did. But any standouts for you?
Yeah, I don't even want to call them standouts because the same. Like I think everybody gave something. But I mean, I guess ones that I think about, I'll say that, is like I think about Ashley's episode, the founder of Unwrap.
I started the business in 2017. I recently quit my job early that year, and it was always a dream of mine to start the company. I quit my job. I pretty much used up my 401k and like really hit the ground running. I purchased my own printer and was literally printing wrapping paper on demand, and that was my business. I had a website and I had an Instagram, and that's pretty much all that I had. Going into year 3, I'm like shocked that I'm still here, that I'm getting all these amazing features and collaborations.
I keep seeing her expand.
Yeah,
so
I see her everywhere. I think I saw her on the train station at one time too, I think.
Really? Yeah, see,
so
that was cool. Of course, like the Carol's Daughter episode was cool too, having the founder, Carol's Daughter.
Lisa Price. That was I thought that was a great episode. I really got a lot from that episode, and that was one of our earlier episodes too.
We grew the business that way. We were able to get retail distribution because of the press attention that we got from having celebrity investors. But then you have to really work on your product, because you can't tell that celebrity story forever. Eventually people have to start like talking about the product, because it's great that Jada invested in hair milk, but what about the hair milk?
Shout out to Lisa for doing that episode with us. Yeah.
The Harlem Chocolate Factory episode was
definitely
really good too.
Like the Harlem That was good.
I had no idea how the hell he was about to pull that off. Like, right, we ain't got no money. We already in the hole from all these shipping disasters. Like, we don't have none of the bread. We have none of the startup to even do a order at this level, asking us to be prepped for anywhere from 10 to 15,000 units, which would mean somewhere around like 100,000 chocolate bars for us. And so I'm like, yeah, we can do it. I got you. And I'm like, how are we gonna get the money? And the next week we won a grant from the CEO of Lowe's. And then I'm like, all right, all of that money is going into the Oprah order. We need to reopen this shop.
Her story was just amazing. We got a 2-parter for that. So if y'all didn't catch that one, definitely catch that. It was a good episode, and it was great gems being dropped. And she was going on, and it was 2 episodes, and not a minute of those episodes felt like it was dragging. The time went by super fast.
Another sleeper was like Linnea Floyd. I really liked that episode too. I just thought she's just someone who is incredible to listen to, like just kind of whatever she's doing, not even necessarily her business, the current business she was talking about, but just her philosophy on life was all interesting for me.
The work that I do, it really is all on my clients. Like they're doing the work. I'm helping. They're in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger seat, reminding them of where they said they wanted the car to go and the best routes that we can take to get there. You don't have to have a lot of money to get a business started. It was a lot of work, it was a lot of time, but like I did my own website. I got a photo shoot off of like Groupon. It was like super cheap. You know, I was doing retouching through Fiverr, again, super cheap. You know, there are lots of budget ways that you can get yourself up and running, but creating an online presence is like building block number one, right? Because when you tell people about your business, they're going to go online and they're going to Google you and they're going to want to find out information. And you got to have at least the bare minimum up there, some kind of presence. You know, word of mouth is great and can do wonders, but ultimately people want to see something. Well, they want to see some testimonials. They want to see, you know, you lay out what you do. They want to see you since they're going to be working with you ultimately. So creating that online presence was really important for me.
Absolutely, good stuff. I definitely like the plant-based for you business, mainly because one, it's a husband-wife duo, right? It was a vegetarian, vegan-based business.
As you see, the story is different for her as it is for me, because there's members and there's things I remember. We've had so much change within the past 4 years within our family dynamic and things like that certain things I kind of put out my memory and certain things she's put out her memory. So it always helps to have us together.
For anyone who goes to a public event where you see people setting up booths or some sort of table and they're selling their wares or they're selling food, that's what vending is. So when you are a vendor, you have to pay money to set up in the space, resources, financial resources to purchase product, to purchase supplies, to purchase your marketing, to pay for your marketing on social media. You have to pay for all of your raw goods and materials. And if you're a food business, you're prepping food for, you know, an expected number of bodies. Now, if you're one vendor out of 20, you're less likely to generate the type of revenue that you put in. And even if you are the sole food vendor, people just might not necessarily want to purchase food from you.
So to see them doing it, and as a husband-wife duo, and them sharing their story and their journey, and, you know, trying to make that all come together, I thought that was a good episode.
Yeah, that was a really good episode, and I think just to give the listeners a little glimpse behind the scenes, there was a lot going on for everybody.
Yeah,
I think I was like in the airport, and then our guests, they were trying to get the childcare situation together while one started and then the other came on. So it was a lot of moving parts.
That was very candid.
That's a memorable episode.
Yeah. You want to talk about candidness, right? That was definitely, and you get to listen in real time what it's like trying to juggle all those elements, running the business, running the family, you know, it was a lot going on, you know, so yeah.
Perfect for that. That was our first and only, like, husband and wife interview. So,
yeah. I mean, listen, we could go on for days. Mr. Johnson with the HomJ tax services, that was a good gem. That was a good story too, right there.
Ariana, the law firm. She was good.
I still ping Ariana every now and then. I need some legal advice. So that was a good one, you know. Shout out to her and her journey, you know, and how she, you know, went from, you know, working at the firms and going to law school and setting up her own business. So listen,
we had Abdul Afrofuture. Just not, you know, we can't go through everybody, but
we can't go through everybody. But that was a good one.
Stefan with the Haitian Creole essence. Castor oil. But yeah, a lot of great guests.
Yeah, it was good stuff. It's been a good journey, you know. And I will say, you know, considering how we started this, you know, just on hey, we're just gonna talk about business, and we're not gonna try to. We're going to try to do it in a way that isn't off-putting to people that want to learn about business, right? Like, there's not going to be, you know, when I first started talking about it, I definitely wanted to make sure we wasn't trying to shame anyone for not being a quote-unquote business person or not starting their own business, right? It was more to just say, hey, if you don't understand something, You're not sure about something, maybe we can help explain it in a bit more digestible terms and concepts outside of the hard business book terminology and concepts. And I've been having fun doing it. How can I say, I don't want to be negative, anything where you said, oh well, we're never doing this again, we're never gonna consider this as a topic?
I can't think of anything even close to that. Like, I think everything there's no episodes. I'm not gonna say my least favorite movie. That's about it. That was what was the one with the I forget the name of the movie, but you're gonna remember when I describe it. It was the family business.
Lionheart.
Yes, Lionheart.
Okay,
thank you. That was my least favorite movie.
Okay,
Lionheart.
Fair enough. All right,
that's the most. Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, the most negative we can say is what's the least favorite movie. Okay, fair enough. Okay, Lionheart.
And I feel like you had a book you really weren't messing with, and I don't remember what it was now.
Hold on. There was a book that I was like, I don't know.
Was it Lean Startup? No,
Lean Startup was cool. Lean Startup was cool. I think it was. Hold on. Why should
maybe essentialism? Maybe it was essentialism.
No. Hold on.
Okay.
It wasn't.
Oh, I'm not gonna guess anymore.
No. Hold on. Let me. 2 seconds. Let me 2 seconds. Yes. Why should white guys have all the fun?
Oh, that was it. Yeah.
That was my lead. And again, it wasn't even like it was bad. I think. I think
out of all the books.
Yeah, it was like out of all the books, it was probably my least favorite, but it was still a solid book overall and very, got some key insights from it. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't want to act like this is the reason why, but maybe why I also didn't like it that much is because, he made his money leveraging debt. Mm-hmm. Big debt, big debt, and big debt, and I'm not with that big. Now that I'm thinking about it out loud, maybe that's why I was like, this wasn't my most pleasurable read over here, but still a good book overall. But you want to talk about leveraging? Y'all want to know about leveraging big debt? Y'all read that book. Why should white guys have all the fun? You definitely will get a better understanding and idea around how that goes into play.
Yeah, I never want to see the kind of debt he was playing around with. But I think not to agree with you exactly, but I feel like I took away a lot more of his story than the business lessons from that particular book.
Too.
I thought his story was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So Sean, any closing words? Any last shout outs or anything before we wrap this up?
Not much. I just think we should mention that kind of this concept of the podcast. We early on we did Think and Grow Rich because that was kind of like a spawn of where all this came from a little bit. The mastermind group and that book Think and Grow Rich. So just shout out to Think and Grow Rich, that episode too.
Yeah, that's definitely where we started at because to the people out there, me and Sean used to work together and we were part of a mastermind group, and even when we weren't part of mastermind group, us working together, we was just chopping it up about business all the time. It seemed like at a certain point I was like, this is a constant thing at this point, so let's just do it as a show. We learned. I'm learning. I've been teaching at the same time and learning at the same time while we've been doing this, so it's been a good journey so far. So
definitely.
And I also for me, just again give a shout out to the support of our listeners in the community. Honestly, we are not, this has always been a thing for me, is like we're not necessarily trying to be personalities with this. We just really like talking about this. Like, honest, if we wasn't doing this show, we would still be talking to each other about this and reading these books on our own and so forth. So we like doing that. But at least for me, the feedback that I get from the people that have been listening in the community, it's always been good to at least know other people are getting value out of it, which we already knew to an extent, but it's always good. So shout out to y'all. Thank you for that for sure. And we're going to definitely continue doing this and doing more episodes, and also providing, we got a few other plans in the works, a few more features, a few more offerings that we're considering in the future for the listeners out there. So
yeah.
All right. Well, here's to the next 50 episodes and beyond. Thank you for being a part of the business grind. And please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends. And until the next time, keep grinding.
The Business Grind is for entertainment purposes. Opinions expressed are those solely of the host and guests. Please consult with a professional and exercise discretion before engaging in any business endeavors.
I'm out here on the grind. I'm out here on the grind.